So much for taking the time. I didn't actually get to meet you in person when I went to visit your winery in August, but I knew I had to talk to you because you're a working mom. You are the head of winemaking at Stoller Winery. And I did a little bit of internet research on you, so I just think you're such an inspiring person.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so let's start from the beginning. I knew you grew up in Oregon, in close to the winery, but can you tell me where you grew up?
Sure, I did. I grew up in Oregon, in Salem, which is the capital here. And the winery that I'm at, Stoller Family Estate, is only about a half hour from where I grew up.
Hmm.
So grew up there right after high school, wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do myself. And so I decided to go to community college outside of Portland, get my 2-year associate's degree while I waited tables and goofed off, just because I felt like that was a good, like, solid core thing I could take with me when I figured it out someday, whatever that would mean, what I wanted to do. So I did that and then moved up to our mountain here, Mount Hood, which is about an hour and a half out of Portland, and worked at a ski resort for a few years and had a lot of fun doing that and did some traveling and exploring. And then I began getting more and more interested in organic food and food in general. I was a vegan for a long time. So that kind of all prompted me to look much more closely at everything, what I'm eating, where the food's sourced from. And in addition, got interested in natural medicine and herbology. So right around that time, this is the mid 90s, I was really immersed with working at a ski resort and being extremely poor and being really fascinated and dedicated to organic food and vegan food and cooking and herbal medicine and such. So after living that way for several years, I decided it was time to get more serious and make more than minimum wage at Mount Hood Meadows and maybe pursue what I wanted to do for a career. So I went to Portland State University and studied chemistry and science, got my pre-med degree there in the late 90s with the intent on going into naturopathic medicine.
Hmm.
So that's where I discovered wine. So I was studying a lot when I was living in Portland, lived next to a really nice grocery store, Zupan's, the chain Zupan's. It's kind of a high-end grocer. And the one that I lived by off of Macadam in Portland would have frequent wine tastings. And so I would shut my books and walk to Zupan's and try wines. And I really got into wines. I was like, it just caught me, the whole world of wine, the diversity and the deliciousness and on, just the immense amount of information and knowledge that is out there to study and learn about and taste and explore. So I drank a lot of wine to get through college. And when I did finish my Bachelor's of Science and I got accepted into a graduate program at the Naturopathic College in Portland, I got kind of a second look at things and really thought what I wanted to be doing with myself. And instead of going into graduate school at that naturopathic college, I thought I would give myself more time to kind of explore what I wanted to do. This wine was interesting, and the region here in Oregon was growing. Mm-hmm. So this kind of led me down this path that I'm at today. So it was an interesting few years.
That's so interesting that in college you drank wine and most of us drink like Bud Light.
Yeah, I did that too. I definitely did have my fair share. I love beer, and I came about wine through liking to drink, and I liked a lot of different porters, and the craft beer movement was really kicking up here. So that led me to wine. But yes.
Yeah, and there's such a huge movement of craft beer too in Portland.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of that, lots of ciders as well coming, and just all sorts of different beverages. We've got distillers coming in doing a fantastic job, and people making kind of hybrid products with alcohol, like low alcohol wine coolers, all sorts of things. So a lot of growth in the beverage category. Mm-hmm. Coffee, non-alcoholic coffee.
I know. I went to Portland and the Willamette Valley for the first time this past August, and I just fell in love with the place because everything you guys do is like to perfection.
There's a lot of people here that are very focused on their craft, and there's a lot of different crafts. So whether it be, you know, a beverage or a cheese or some kind of food of all sorts, and some great chefs and farmers, and definitely it's a nice place for that. And there's a lot of people that are very passionate about their craft.
So you decided that you wanted to get into wine, but how did you know exactly in what way you would work with wine?
I didn't really, and this is a lot of times my approach to life is I just follow kind of the direction of interests and go from there. So I was interested in wine. I had just attained a very strong science background with organic chemistry and biochemistry. I've always been drawn to science and been relatively good at studying science in school. So I had that foundation, and then I had this interest for wine. And in addition, my mother-in-law purchased a beautiful piece of property around the same time. This is about 1998, 1999, in the Columbia Gorge. So just across the Columbia River from Hood River, which is about an hour and a half east of Portland, just a beautiful area. She purchased a property for her horses and just to have some country property. On this property, there's a vineyard with 12 acres. Half of it is Pinot Noir, half of it's Gewürztraminer. So the whole family was excited about, oh, we have a vineyard now. You know, so there's this wine, there's science, there's this new vineyard, and all this kind of dreamy talk about opportunity with that. Like maybe the family could start a winery someday, or there's something. It sort of all came together.
Yeah.
And so that pushed me more towards wine. And for me, I was more compelled with winemaking than viticulture, because possibly, you know, just my interests and liking to cook and liking science and liking the kind of tangible material to blend and make something with and have a new crop every year versus being in the vineyard side of things. And interestingly, my husband and I together went down this path because we were married by then. We're going on 20 years this summer. So
oh my gosh, congratulations.
Yeah, that's what I say. I'm like, oh my God, how old am I? How did that happen? That it's over half my life now we've been together.
Yeah.
So then, you know, we were in our mid-20s, and he comes from a farming background, and he studied horticulture for a while. He went to community college here locally and got a horticulture degree, and was really looking towards something in that category. So when this time was all coming together, when the vineyard was purchased by his mother and I just finished my science degree, we were looking collectively at what we wanted to do. Because if I went into graduate school for naturopathic medicine, that could have been fabulous, still very interesting to me. However, looking at that more seriously, realistically, Portland has one of the very best colleges in the United States for naturopathic medicine. It's very saturated then with naturopathic doctors. It's a 4 to 5 year program that would put us really financially behind for quite a long time. And we wanted to get out of the city. We both like to live more in like a country lifestyle with a little bit more space. So with all of this, he thought that maybe he would go into the industry with viticulture. So we approached it together. And the way we did that was we first moved out of Portland, moved up to his mother's property in the Gorge. And he farmed that new property's vineyard for one season. For that summer, I worked at a tasting room in the Gorge called Cascade Cliffs, which is really fun, beautiful spot on the Columbia, and just helped with that. And then I started making phone calls to look for an internship for that harvest, which was going to be 2001. So called all around and connected with Cooper Mountain Vineyards, which is in Beaverton, Oregon here. And they've been grape growing for over 40 years now. They farm their grapes organically and biodynamically. So I was very drawn to them first. So I probably overcalled them a bit and asked them, inquired about an internship. And and did get hired by them for a winemaking internship, which was meant to be about 3 months in time, starting that fall of '01. And so I moved back to Portland and started there. And the fourth day of my employment at Cooper Mountain as the intern for 2001, the assistant winemaker quit, and there wasn't a on-staff full-time winemaker for that brand at that time. There was a consultant who worked remotely, and then myself then, and our vineyard team that's there. So I had a lot of opportunity that was unforeseen to be able to literally get my hands on doing things that I probably wouldn't have been doing if there was a winemaker and more of a leadership staff there for that vintage.
Yes.
So it was really fortuitous, and I kind of hit the ground running. I loved it. It was crazy, but that's where it all started for me with winemaking.
It seems like all the right doors opened for you at the right time. Like was it your mother-in-law buying the land, and then your husband having experience in horticulture, and then you getting that internship, right?
Yeah.
What is your advice for someone who wants to get into, let's say, beer making or wine making, that when they don't have that experience, should they get an internship? And were you paid for that internship?
Yes, I was paid for the internship, and that's a good question. I really like thinking about this question because I think now, especially with all, the connectivity of the internet and resources we have, there are ways to pursue what you want to do, even if you don't have any experience. You just need to gather the experience, and certainly internships are a fantastic way to start. I can't speak to the beer industry about how that works. Wine in the winery and in the vineyard, but specifically on the winemaking side of things, it's a seasonal thing. Obviously, you only have one harvest per year, typically, where you're working with the grapes. So you need to staff up during that intense time when everything happens, when you're fermenting and pressing grapes and feeding the ferments and so on. So most wineries hire interns. And so if somebody was interested, I would definitely look to pursue an internship with a winery. Am I cutting out a little bit?
I can hear you perfectly, but your lips are not matching up.
Okay, that's how it was for you too. So I apologize. Our Wi-Fi isn't the best, and it's not even the best I'm at home. It's not the best at work either sometimes. So there's not really a win-win here. So
Yeah.
I thought I'd try this.
Me same. It's fine. As long as I can hear you, it's totally cool.
Okay, good. So yes, I would encourage people to do whatever they can to pursue their interests in either anything. But I mean, specifically with wine, there's courses you can take all over the place. There's tasting classes. A lot of colleges will offer things. There's online programs. The WSET, which is a world standardized education program, offers several levels of training for people. And I think if you're interested, you just dive in and start doing things. Go to tastings and sign up for restaurants that are doing tastings for certain wine varietals, and just do as much as you can to get immersed in your spare time, even if you're busy and working full-time doing something else. Read a bunch of things, read some blogs, and just get out there and fill your mind up with what is out there, and it just kind of leads to the next thing. And again, certainly internships are fabulous for getting your foot in the door.
Were you also working while you were interning?
No, at that time it was 100% intern. And when you do get hired as an intern, typically for a winemaking position, you're needed to be there because you're there. It's sometimes 12, 14-hour days or more, sometimes lighter, but it's every day of the week when things ramp up. And so you don't have a lot of time for doing anything else. So you kind of need to have that flexibility for yourself to dedicate a few months to that, to being relatively poor and just working. But what you gain is an immense amount of knowledge and experience, and also the understanding of if it's something you want to pursue, because it's not for everybody. For one, it's not glamorous a lot of the times. Especially if you're in a winemaking position, you're responsible for a lot of day-to-day logistics and cleaning and mechanics and just really janitorial type things. And it just, lots of hours of labor. There's the beautiful side of blending and all this sexy stuff, but it's not for everybody. You might get into this internship and be like, this sucks. I've been cleaning for 8 hours and I'm cold and I make $14 an hour and it's not for me. I look down the line and long term, winemaking, you can make a decent living, but it's not something that it's on the top 10 income earning positions that you can strive for. So you need to love it, or else don't do it.
So you mentioned that this was in the 90s, and I imagine because the wine industry is so male dominated, how did the males treat you? Did you ever feel like you were the underdog?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that a lot of that happened, especially for me. I was younger. I was not even 30. I was in my mid to late 20s, and I didn't have a lot of experience. I was the underdog, really. To after I was at Cooper Mountain, it was a big stretch to take the winemaking position at Stoller in 2003. I was certainly, looking back, not the most qualified applicant. If anything, I was the least. Mm-hmm. So that started with me, and I came into an industry that was established here in Oregon with people that had more experience, and there was a lot of skepticism about that, and even going forward, there's funny little things that happen. Like, one of the things a lot of my female winemaking friends joke about is just the dynamics that you come across sometimes when, let's say, a sales rep for a equipment company comes and they want to talk to the winemaker, and they sometimes won't believe that that's you. So we need to talk to the winemaker. Like, well, you are. I don't know if you expected me to be an old Italian man in my 70s. Yeah. That was my last life. So things like that happen, but fortunately for me personally, I don't have any big thing. If anything, I was very supported, I think, looking back. My boss really would be the number one person that I could speak of, because he hired me. He hired me, him and his wife at that time, and they put their trust in me, and they knew that I didn't have very much experience. And I mean, after I got hired, it was in 2003 in the summer. I was still meant to be at Cooper Mountain for the harvest of 2003, but I got hired late August at Stoller. And I did stay at Cooper Mountain for that harvest and finish that out before I went to work full-time for Stoller. At the time I got hired, Stoller was a much smaller wine project. It was a large vineyard that Bill Stoller had established in the 1990s. In 95, he planted his first 20 acres. Mm-hmm. When I came on in 2003, there were 120 acres planted. Mm-hmm. But his intention at that time wasn't to use all that fruit for the Stoller label. He was just starting his label, and it was meant to be very boutique. His intention was to grow fruit and sell to other producers, and keep a very small amount for Stoller. So he hired me to oversee this growing boutique brand. His vision was to be about 4,000 cases. But he certainly supported me. And after I got the position, about 3 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant with my first son. And that was quite tumultuous in my own mind, right? You got this long stretch of luck to get this dream job with people that were phenomenal in the area, and then I find out I'm pregnant, and I've always wanted to be a mom, right? And that was so exciting, but I was really very concerned about how I was going to be able to do both. And so I did have a very candid conversation, which I share because it means a lot to me, with Bill Stoller at his office, in his corporate office in Tualatin, Oregon. I went down, got dressed up, had a meeting with him, and told him, how grateful I was to be, newly appointed to this dream job. And I remember he's like interrupting me. He's like, but what? We don't, whenever someone says but, I always take like a pause and get a little worried. I was like, well, I am pregnant, and I am not going to be working 60 hours a week for your project. And I think it warrants someone that does. And so I want to be very clear about that. And we have a lot of time to find somebody else, right? There's a lot of very qualified people. I don't want to have anything out there. I just want you to understand that. I don't know how it's going to work being a mom, because it's my first time, but I know that for a fact. And he was he smiled. He was very supportive, and that resonates with me because that is kind of a foundation for what, you know, the years have been like. And of course, nothing is perfect at any job or with any relationship, but that core of trust is fabulous. And so when you talk about, you know, how was it working with males, like I had a very positive, supportive experience overall, you know, aside from the trivial things, luckily trivial, that happened along the way, which just made me laugh most of the time when people tease me about being a winemaker. I just kind of give them a little bit back, and it was kind of fun to like, entertain, you know, the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so interesting because you were pregnant and you can't really drink, right?
No, you can't. And I mean, you can drink a little if you want to. I think, you know, you can have a little bit of wine. I know back when my mom was pregnant, she'd have a half a glass of wine here or there, whatever. But that's not the point. You obviously can't drink much at all. And it was very challenging that first harvest when I was finishing up Cooper Mountain harvest, trying to kind of pop in and see what was going on with the Stoller wines. They were being made at Chehalem Winery, and that's a partner winery that Bill Stoller now owns entirely, but he co-owned then. And so I'd go to Chehalem, I'd go do my winemaking at Cooper Mountain, and I was so nauseous, and everything smelled awful. And so it wasn't the easiest harvest, that's for sure.
Wow. So you get your dream job, you get your dream baby. Do you believe that a woman can have it all?
I think anything's possible, and it's not always like, there's some saying like, you get to the point you've always wanted to be and it's not quite how you think. That's like the story of my life. I mean, everything can sound good, but there's always something that changes. And I think just being flexible and positive and just trying to follow what your priorities are, I think is really helpful. And again, nothing's easy. It's really hard being a working mom. There's no doubt about it. And I've had some big struggles with that. You know, it's like a teeter-totter, and sometimes everything at home is going good. You know, the kids, I've taken great care of what they need, and the house is good, and my husband's happy, and you know, that's all settled. And then at work, I need to be there a lot more, and then vice versa. You're at work and you're cranking through stuff, and it's really wonderful, and then you're like, oh man, I've got this other whole big thing. So, and there's all the, you know, in between of that. So it's not easy, that's for sure. It's just, I think part of it is just trying your best and trying to work with other people and have people help support you, and delegating is really important, and having boundaries, which is hard. You know, it's really hard to like always know what is top priority and what you need to say no to, because you can't do everything.
Yeah.
You really can't.
How many kids do you have?
I have 2. Well, I have 3 if you include my husband, but he's not a child. He's just very, very tall. I have 3 boys. Yes.
So how important is it for you to be a working mom and to show your kids that it's important for you to chase your dreams?
It is important to me. It's very important. I think that when we talk about work, my sons still think work like that it is something that you have to do. And granted you do, but you need to do something that you enjoy. And that's what I talk to them about, is like, it's really important. Like, it's more important to pursue something that you're interested in, because you do need to earn money and be contributing part of the society and take care of yourself and all that. So you better look at your interests and foster those now. Like, what do you like? And don't get so overwhelmed with what you're supposed to do, but, you know, pursue what seems interesting to you, and you don't have to stay at the same thing forever. So it is very important to me. And it's also very important to me to be present for them. And on the other side of that, you know, at Stoller, a lot of the times I'm not there for things I really would like to be there for. But again, speaking back to what I was saying, like you obviously can't do everything. And so something has to give. And so it's just like kind of weighing that out on a day-to-day basis and having kind of some strong boundaries. It's very helpful.
Yeah. So you said that you got your dream job, but you were the least experienced, least qualified. What do you think it was about you that your boss saw that he could trust you with this job?
I think it's that him and his late wife, they're both Oregonian kind of to the core. They like to hire local. That's a big part of it. Bill Stoller owns and operates one of the largest staffing companies in the world. And so he built it up, with a team, but from scratch, basically. And so his whole profession that he's done very well with is hiring people and having networks and relationships. So the way he thinks has somewhat to do with that. So I think it was a connection there with myself. I'm pretty honest and passionate, and I had been working and I had explained what I'm looking for. And I think they just trusted that about me. And I think they like people that are humble as well, because they wanted someone that would grow with the company rather than at that time bringing on someone that had a tremendous amount of experience that could take it where they wanted it. I think Bill wanted this whole project to unfold and do it organically, and he wanted to help create it. So I feel like hiring me, I was amenable to that and fit that bill. For no pun intended there, but yeah, fit that bill for for the situation. So, and other than that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why. I seriously would not have hired myself if I had that project. I would have hired someone that had a lot of experience and was really polished and gone that direction. So I still don't know, but I'm grateful.
Well, maybe he saw something in you that you could learn on the job. Like maybe you faked it till you made it. Like maybe he saw that that grit inside of you.
Probably. I think that with the Cooper Mountain situation, that probably helped. Like I was there and, kind of got thrown in there. And then I also have a strong science background. So I came with, a very good accreditation from that department. So it wasn't just zero experience. I also took some courses at Oregon State University. I studied fermentation science kind of between getting my internship and graduating with my pre-med right in that time between. I knew I wanted to go into this industry, so I chipped away at some classes. So I did have some. I went to a community college called Chemeketa that has a winemaking program outside of Salem, and I took some of their courses. So I had that to offer as well. So that probably was part of it, certainly.
I felt like you were qualified.
Yeah, I was, but when it came to hands-on winemaking experience, I had 2 internships I had done, and now in this time with the competition and the amount of people in the industry, which is tremendously greater than it was 15 years ago, the pool of applicants, it's much more competitive. So someone getting a head winemaking position for the Stoller project today would not be necessarily me.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it's probably not. So just speaking.
So you're a head winemaker. What does that mean? What do you actually do?
Well, it's changed a lot. So, and every winery is different, different size and different focus on what products you're making and dynamics, which is something I very much appreciate, especially here in Oregon, which is what I know, this industry, is the diversity of wineries and their culture. So at Stoller, we have grown tremendously over the last 5 years. And now we have a team of winemakers that make the wines. And so I am recently appointed as vice president of winemaking. And what that means really is that I work with the winemaking team and help just push things forward. So I will, collaborate with the winemakers. I'll taste through things. I'll help with kind of directional meetings. I represent the brand quite often. So I'll do traveling during the spring and early summer to do different events and work with our distributors across the United States and do dinners, things like that, and really just support the team and make sure at the fundamental of it that the needle is pointed in the direction that we want to go qualitatively, which I feel confident with our team that it will, but just having that historical knowledge of the property and being close to Bill Stoller and kind of the philosophy behind what we're growing is just kind of being part of that team and sometimes pulling things back in a little bit with our expansive growth. So if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's day to day. I'm not necessarily doing much winemaking hands-on day to day in terms of getting barrels racked, and I'm running the teams and doing work orders, which is a tremendous amount of work. But I do work with the teams and help support them.
Did you used to do more of the science behind it, like more of the process?
Yeah, definitely. And it's still, it's one of these things that it's the foundational base to everything. And I still am making sure that science is there. We have a lot more sophisticated lab now. We hired a fantastic young lady who would be an interesting person to talk to as well. Her name is Jamie Rausch, and she is Stoller Family Estate's first enologist, which means basically someone that oversees all the lab and all the science and chemistry behind all of our wines. And so she built this state-of-the-art winery and got all these pieces of equipment. One of them is called a gallery, and it looks like it's a box, but it's just like basically a giant robot that tests, like calibrates all these wines, all these little solutions, and it's really high tech. And she's running on her computer and doing all this testing. And she looks over hundreds and hundreds of SKUs of wine, of lots of wine. So the point is, we didn't have any of that when I started in 2003. I sent things out to the lab. I did in-house, checks of chemistry. But yes, I did more of that hands-on, day-to-day stuff. And now we've just grown, so we've got more resources.
Yeah. Actually, I went to my favorite wine bar here in New York City, and one of the head owners, he did a tasting for us, and it was the Willamette Valley versus Bordeaux. And it was a blind tasting, so we had to see which one we liked better. And everyone else preferred the Bordeaux, but I preferred the Willamette Valley Pinot Noirs. And that's the reason why I really wanted to go and taste them myself. Because, when we think of wineries in the US, we think of Napa and Sonoma. Nobody really talks about Oregon. And I was so shocked at how beautiful your winery is and how advanced it is, if I could say advanced, because it's all sustainable, right?
It is. Yeah, it's a very special place. I think that the core of it is that Bill Stoller, it's his property he purchased from his uncle. So he grew up as a little kid, as a baby, really just there on that farm, and then grew up helping his uncle, bought the property, and has this pride of ownership. He's a third generation Oregonian. So that's kind of at the core of it. It's his Picasso is what I like to say, this 400 acres. And then so he started this vineyard and went forward, but he's also created a lot of wealth for himself with his business that he started. So he can afford technology and he can afford to do things right. And he is somebody that has a long vision. He thinks a few hundred years in advance, which I'm not. It's really admirable to see happen. But the point with the property is that he built the winery that the first winery on the property was built in 2005, and at that time he built the first LEED Gold certified winery in the world. So he decided to go down that path, and LEED is leader in energy and environmental design. And so to attain that certification, you have to follow a very stringent protocol. We actually hired a consultant to help us select building materials and make sure you had efficiencies all across your water and everything you do. We have solar panels on the roof. We actually have over 1,000 solar panels between the winery that was built in 2005, our tasting room that you visited was built in 2012. And then we expanded our production and built a second facility on the property, and that has numerous amounts of solar panels. I should know off the top of my head, but I think it's about 1,500 in total between the three buildings. So one of the largest solar arrays. And people think Oregon, I think it rains all the time. It actually doesn't, and you can offset a lot of your energy needs with solar, which is fabulous.
You keep mentioning like Oregonian, and I think it was Michelle who mentioned that Oregon is a very special place for some reason, the land and the people, everyone's like so creative and entrepreneurial, and when they have an idea, they just like go after it, which I love, and it inspired me so much. What is your advice for people who don't live in Oregon, who want to cultivate this spirit of, I guess, like entrepreneurship and just following a dream?
Well, that's a good question. I would say selfishly, probably don't move here because it's not a lot of space. It rains a lot. So,
it's actually not that cool.
No, it's not. No, I think that the world is becoming a smaller and smaller place. And if there's so many ways you can reach out on the internet, and I think travel has gotten a lot easier.
Yeah.
And education is more, there's things you can reach for. And so no matter where you live, I feel like if you're determined to follow some kind of pursuit, I feel like you can, and you can just keep chipping away at things. Like if you live in the Midwest and you're interested in winemaking, you can like I said, you can read, you can go on to the UC Davis website, and there's remote courses you can take to chip away at some accreditation and get that fundamental understanding of winemaking. You can go to your local wine shop and ask when tastings are going to happen. You can just kind of barge into wherever and just get yourself immersed with wine, because wine is really trending in the United States per capita. Every year we drink more and more, and restaurants are getting more interesting wines on their lists, more wine shops are popping up. So I feel like you can get involved no matter where you are in something like that.
Yeah.
So.
And start drinking it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just start experimenting and drinking, and just do it. I just get out there and do it. You don't have to be, or whatever entrepreneurial thing you're pursuing. I think it's good to just try to keep focused on that, and no matter where you are, just gather what you need, and read and look to people that are doing it well, and ask a lot of questions, and try things. You know?
Yeah. Actually, a lot of women ask me, because they're interested in so many things, and they're like, I don't know what to focus on. Because I like photography, I like traveling, blah, blah, blah. It seems like you liked wine, and it sounds like you trusted your instincts and just followed all the open doors. But
yes.
Is there a piece of advice you could give to these women on how to narrow it down?
I think taking your interests and your intuition and combining it with realistic goals is important. So I just talked to a young woman not too long ago who came to me for some career advice, and she lives in Portland, and she has a young daughter, and she's taking some online classes for something else she's interested in. But the point is, she wants to work in wine. She didn't know what that meant, and she was asking me about the Stoller wine jobs. It's like, well, first of all, realistically, you driving from downtown Portland to Stoller to work in a tasting room for, that's great and all, but that doesn't seem to fit with your lifestyle. Like, why don't you look around and look at the local distributors, and why don't you start talking to some wine shops, and maybe you have a holistic interest in medicine and food and products, go to some of the chain grocers like New Seasons and see what you can do. Like, just kind of start tallying up what's around you that could fit with what your interests are. If you're into photography, maybe that's something you look at, like, how would that, like, what could I do? Are there some courses near me that I can take? Or, is there any way I could look at any businesses and say, hey, I'll do this for free for a little while. Like, I'll take some pictures, or maybe you start taking pictures and putting them up on Instagram and creating some Instagram account, and just, figuring out how you could go forward. So, and it's kind of ambiguous, but that's the best way I can look at it. It's like, for me, I would love to travel and be somebody that tasted wine around the world, right? And just maybe we work with a consultant, and I'd love to go over to France and work for 6 months, and then go over to Italy. I mean, there's opportunities there for me. That's not realistic for me with 2 kids and a house, so I don't do that.
I'll be a consultant.
Yeah. So no, some things just don't fit the bill, They really don't. Like, I've had opportunities that sounded phenomenal for jobs that required a lot more travel and moving and things like that, which, if I was a single person and I had all that energy to do it, I would, but I just know that's not what's realistic for my lifestyle, like, long term. So part of that too.
Yeah. So it's just being honest with yourself.
Yeah. Being honest with yourself and combining, I think us women can do a lot of things at once, in a way. I think the way that a lot of us think, we can think about things that aren't necessarily related, and that's a very strong skill. And you think about one thing, and then you're really interested in another, and you take care of this, and you do that, and that's really, really helpful for so many situations. And I think if you take that inherited trait that sometimes is very feminine, and you anchor it to something that's more grounding, like in practical, like literally looking at data, like how many wine bars are around me, and what are they, and what are the hours, and do they need, maybe I'll apply it, 2 of them because they're closer, or something like that, like just grounding it into something that's practical was helpful.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah.
So I love Pinot Noir. That happens to be my favorite wine, and the Willamette Valley and your winery make it the best. But why, can you tell me why you love it?
Sure, I will. I love Pinot Noir because it's very reflective of things. So it's a grape that it changes every year with the vintage. So specifically for me, working so long with one estate, so over 15 years, so 16 vintages at one hillside. Every vintage makes a nuanced difference in the way the wine turns out. So some growing seasons, they start earlier because we have a very warm spring, and maybe we have a hot summer and an early harvest. We harvest the grapes early September instead of end of September. Well, the resulting wine can be rich. It could have a bit more sugar accumulation because of the heat and a lot of ripe fruit. And then maybe the next year is a cooler season overall with the growing conditions. And we harvest our grapes later in the fall. And in the fall, the temperatures are more moderate, which is actually where Pinot Noir flourishes. It likes slow and steady, so you can develop these interesting, we call them tertiary flavors, like spice and earth. Those come out more in these cooler growing seasons. So you could have one of those just after one that was warmer and make 2 different wines. And you don't necessarily want to make all the wines the same, right? Even though you have this qualitative expectation to produce wines, there is beauty in just making the wines very reflective of the vintage and the spot. So Pinot does that so well. And also it has a lot of complexity. So Pinot has such a broad gamut of aromatics that you can experience through smelling and the wine and tasting. And it also has layers. So, how it smells and how it tastes at first, and what is the mid palate like, what's the weight like. Tannins can come across so differently in each Pinot Noir. And then the acidity in Pinot Noir, I think, really makes it a star. So Pinot Noir tends to have a lot of natural acidity, especially from Oregon and our cooler climate. And acidity makes wine just sing, and it makes it pair well with food, makes it hold up to food. So you can have it and you can have another glass. You're not sick of having one glass because it's this weighty wine that has kind of a richness to, but not really a brightness to the acidity gives. So that is what makes Pinot so versatile, and it ages beautifully as well, because it tends to be something that does have fruit and acid and a balanced amount of alcohol. So wines that have those things that are stored correctly, a lot of times could age just beautifully.
Nice. Ooh, I love how you describe that. It's so beautiful.
Time for some Pinot Noir, right?
I know. I wish we were doing this while we were drinking wine.
I know. You need to come back.
I have to come back.
You do. Because, I think if you did come back to follow up once you get going with this series, we have some amazing women on the Stoller team.
Yeah.
So we have almost half of people that work in leadership are women at Stoller. On our wine team alone, we've got, I mentioned Jamie, our enologist. We also have Kate Payne-Brown, who's our associate winemaker at the Reserve original facility, and she is fantastic. She is such a great winemaker. So
I'll just have to come back and interview everybody who drink wine.
You do. Yeah, I think so. And Oregon has a lot of female winemakers, so that alone could be a follow-up segment. It's talking to Oregon women winemakers.
That's another reason why I love Oregon so much.
Yeah, I think that's great. And people ask me why that is about Oregon, and I don't know that answer, but I think if you look at history of when people migrated out here, Oregon, was one of those places that people went south, right? And then the few kind of bold and brave ones kept going north to Oregon. And there's this pioneering spirit to the state that still exists. I mean, we're not that old of a country, right? And
Yeah.
there's still a little bit of that happening, and it just resonates in the culture of Oregon. And I mean, not all of Oregon's like that. It's a large state, and so I think west of the mountains a lot of times is where you have a lot of this this happening. But the state has a special pioneering spirit to it to this day.
It does, for sure.
Yeah.
What would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Oh, so many things, but I would
tell the same thing.
Yeah, so many things I would tell myself. That's for sure. I would tell myself to have more confidence and to be more focused on what really matters and priorities, and just keep that compass pointed at that. So there's so many influences that happen when you're that age that are distracting and all that, but I would say just that, make smart decisions, go to bed earlier, keep your health up, but just that, like I tell myself just to try to have your own, internal confidence. It helps immensely. But I feel like that's kind of stuff that you learn along the way, right? Like you can say that, like I have my boys and I tell them things, like I tell them often, like you need to listen to people's advice that are older than you, that have experience that you haven't had, because they get that not through because they know it's right, because they've learned that over time. You can get like a shortcut to so many things if you're a good listener. Yeah. And that's probably what I tell myself, be a better listener. I am a listener, but really like listen to people's advice that have life experiences that you haven't had yet, and take that advice and really take it in, because you could learn so much more quickly. You only have one lifetime, and when you're 25, you haven't had that many years yet. So just kind of open your mind up a little bit more to what's around you and being told. And not the easiest thing to do when you're young, but it's easier when you're older.
Mine was confidence. I cared way too much about what I looked like and what people thought.
Yeah, me too. And the more that time goes on, it doesn't matter,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it is so great. It's so true. I felt I love this. I wish you could have this kind of confidence and mindset, and I want my 25-year-old body back.
Yes.
That would be a perfect combination. I would be just.
It's like, why can't they happen at the same time?
No, it's not fair. It's just not fair. But that's just how it works, I guess.
Okay, I have 2 more questions.
Okay.
You got your dream job, you have your family. It seems like you're at the top of your game. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's a good question. I knew you were going to ask me that. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And I feel like it's an interesting thing. I feel like right now I would like to almost slow down and just be kind of mindful and grateful for what I have, and take better care of everything that I have, including myself, my family, and my job. So if I could just keep on that path for 5 years and just trust, that process, I feel like I'll be in a good place. I don't have lofty ambitions at this time. Like I don't want to go start, some mega wine brand, or I don't have this big goal to move to somewhere else. I just really want to be present and do things well and enjoy my time. So hopefully in 5 years, I'm even better at that than I am today. So we'll see.
Oh, I love that answer. You're living your best life already.
Yeah, well, it's always room for improvement, right? That's kind of what my point. I just want to keep improving. And I just really do, and just really savor the time and just make good decisions. And kind of, I feel like I read a good quote lately and I really liked it. It's like, the world doesn't need more successful people. It needs people that are like caring and loving. It needs the artists and the people that are very spiritual. So that's kind of where I want to go.
Yeah.
Not, my pet. Yeah.
If you find that quote, can you send it to me?
I will send it to you. I don't know if that's even a destination, but I think it's a good mindset. You need to be successful. And of course, I'd love to be making so much money and and all that, but I feel like I'm very happy where I'm at, and that's it. And just, I think if anything, it's how do you give more out to help the situation. It's kind of, when your cup is full, then how do you help other people truly, and kind of get out of yourself a little bit more, which isn't easy when you're busy,
Right. But I think that's why I started this podcast, is also redefining success. Because success doesn't have to mean just getting rich and climbing up the corporate ladder. It could literally be, just working at a winery and having kids. Like, that's
Yeah.
success to me.
Yeah, it is to me too. It's that, and just enjoying and appreciating your life as success, even if you're, a college student living in a dorm and you don't know what you want to do, just like trusting, it's hard to do, but trusting that whole process and enjoying what you have around you and setting goals for yourself and growing. But yeah, I think sometimes it's hard because people always want more and more, and what does it really mean to be successful? And it's very unique to each individual, I think. Somebody else's definition is I need to be, something completely different, right?
But that's why I love drinking wine, because not to bring it back to wine, but you like have to sip it so you slow down and you enjoy the company around you, or if you're by yourself. That's
Right.
so magical.
Yeah, it's true. It's not something that, yeah, you're right. Other things that you might consume, like if you have, it's not as thoughtful. Like you can drink a beer, just drink another beer, but wine, first of all, if you drink it that quickly, you're probably going to get like pass out. So you sip it,
Yeah.
And then the wine changes so much as it's in your glass, and it changes with food, and it's just a unique experience, that's for sure. And it's a nice way to unwind. I think it's a very warm kind of, it's very cerebral and comfortable, the way that it makes you relax and kind of the when you drink it. So it's special, and it's a sense of place that's unique. Like you only get one vintage in most places per year. So it's a very organic product that I think it's special, and usually it's just grapes, where other things are different. So yeah, it's a really special thing, that's for sure.
Yeah. When people ask me how I relieve my stress or how to make myself feel better, I say I drink a glass of red wine, Pinot Noir, and then I cry.
That's a good way,
Oh,
right?
it's like my therapy.
Yes, it's good. It's good to just release your emotions. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think Pinot Noir can fix so many things.
So
definitely.
many things. I have this like love affair with it. Yeah.
It's so beautiful, and it can just help you relax, and just it's such a great way to unwind at the end of the day, or to have a nice meal with friends or whatnot. But it's a good medicine. That's what I think about. People ask me, like, you went into a different kind of medicine, right? Instead of naturopathic medicine.
Oh my God, I think it's naturopathic.
Yeah, it is
for you.
all in moderation, even moderation, right?
Yes,
So
totally.
yeah.
So last question, even though I don't want this to end, but I'm going to let you go on your day. What is your definition of a dream life?
Oh man, dream life. I think a dream life is something where you feel engaged and you're appreciative and you're healthy, and even if you're not healthy, you're very present in your surroundings and you're grateful for what you have. That's a dream life to me, honestly. And I think a lot of that is a lot harder to attain than it sounds, and even day-to-day changes for all of us, right? But just having that as your goal is just like a balanced, confident, grateful individual is pretty much a dream life. And that's it. And if you can have time to pursue your interests, if you have enough to be able to take care of yourself and eat and have a nice place to live and be excited by life, that's a dream life.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Online, I am on Stoller. So on the website, my contact information is there. And then it's our Stoller Wine is our Instagram page for Stoller. Sometimes I'll be on there or on our Facebook page. But if you want to email, that's probably the best way to find me, and my contact is online. It's basically easy. It's melissa@stollerfamilyestate.com.
Okay.
So that's probably the best way to find me. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so
Or
much.
on Zoom.
Or Zoom. Just give her a call. Or visit you at your winery.
That's right. You can visit the winery. That's exactly it, which I encourage you to do, like I said, in all seriousness.
Yes. I'm coming back.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Michelle will hook it all up for you, and I'll make sure that we spend time and have fun and drink some wine, and you meet the other ladies at Stoller.
Yes.
It'll be fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story and all the advice you gave. I honor you for pursuing your dreams and for making delicious wine.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was really nice to talk to you and to meet you. So thank you for that. And I we'll look forward to connecting in the future.
Yes. We'll have
Yeah,
a
and
good
see your, thank you, you too. And I want to see your podcast. I cannot wait to see them all.
Oh, yes, for sure. I will send you the information.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.